Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Police has an idea to fix crime in South Africa. But before we get on to the main news stories, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I know some of you wonder why I ask every day. The reason for that is over 60% of our audience hasn't yet subscribed to the channel. It really does help if you would. And if you want to support the work that I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. But before we get on to the main news story, let's cover another pressing news story that is currently in the news. And that is, I brought to you yesterday the story that Lesufi was going to be summoned by the ANC to explain why he was making anti-GNU comments. He went before the ANC today, specifically who they call the top 7. So Lesufi was asked why he keeps making comments that appear to be anti-GNU in the media. Now, according to the ANC, the NEC has been given a mandate and a requirement to form a GNU, which the ANC would then lead, and that any negative public comments on the GNU would basically be classed as a form of dismissal of what the NEC had demanded of the ANC. Lesufi, however, defended his position, saying he had never made these negative comments and that the media was simply misportraying him. They were misquoting him, they were misunderstanding him. Wasn't him, but was like everyone else. According to Fikile Mbalula, Lesufi actually spoke beautifully about the GNU. And so with that, Lesufi was basically let off free. According to Mbalula, it wasn't a disciplinary, it was a political engagement. Addressing the media after the political engagement, Fikile Mbalula did say that those who criticize the GNU are just nothing more than populists. He said that the GNU was very popular with society and business as a whole, which is kind of true considering that business has taken a renewed interest in investing in South Africa and business sentiment hasn't been this high for some time. Mbalula went on further to say those who criticize the GNU are just too lazy to think. But whilst I note all of those comments, I still also note that today, Wednesday, there's meant to be a vote in Tshwane over who is going to be the new mayor. And according to Fikile Mbalula, there's no deal. Not yet. Now the DA basically said that if the ANC doesn't return Cilliers to office, they're not going to help the ANC anywhere else, and all the stable governance that they've got in the metros will all just be like over because they won't be able to support the ANC anymore. This ultimatum by the DA, specifically Helen Zille, was addressed by Fikile Mbalula, who said, I can't comment on everything that Helen Zille says, and if I did, it'd go grey, because that's what I'd be doing all day. Which, to be honest, is kind of fair. Now, I, for one, would give the following political analysis on the situation. And that is, first of all, the ANC's been chasing the mayorship of Tshwane for some time. They finally got it. I don't think they really know what to do with it. It's kind of like a dog chasing a car. Now it's got the car. Now what? Problem is as well that they were relying quite a lot on support from parties like Action SA. But Action SA also had their own political opinion on this. I mean, they kind of want the mayorship. They've got the deputy mayor, now they've got the acting mayor. So they actually want the full mayorship, but they're not going to get it. Now, there's a reason they're not going to get it, and that's because the ANC and the DA both have the same policy. And that is, where they have the majority of the votes, they feel they should be governing. Now, you've got to remember they used that same excuse in the city of Joburg. That's why they got rid of the former El Jumar mayor, on the basis that, they're the majority party and therefore they should govern. So how then would they be able to give the mayorship in Tshwane to Action SA? Because they've already applied their rule in the city of Johannesburg. The other side of it is that the ANC for some time has been campaigning to get rid of Cilliers. Now they got rid of Cilliers. How honestly could they return Cilliers back to power? If they did that, it would be deeply humiliating to them because they've been campaigning for something that they finally got. Now Helen knows this, and the smart thing to do would be to negotiate such that possibly somebody else was nominated. Somebody else in the DA possibly. Or maybe even somebody in the ANC. Maybe they could agree from somebody from, I don't know, Freedom Front Plus. Maybe. There's a number of ways that you could split the entire thing. But asking the ANC to return Cilliers is actually really difficult, which is why Fikile Mbalula says the entire thing, insisting that Cilliers comes back, is simply, in his words, unacceptable. I think unacceptable is rather generous of Fikile. I think it's probably politically humiliating if they were to return him. And with that in mind, it's probably not the best negotiation tactic to insist on it consistently. But let's go on to the main story, and that is crime. Crime in South Africa is obviously a huge problem. It's often the reason that most people start for wanting to leave our country. This police minister, however, is completely different to the previous police minister, Bekizele. the current police minister is actually pretty competent and likes to do things rather quietly in order to benefit the public. And one of the things that he's noticed is that we have this thing in South Africa called private security, which is governed and regulated by an entity called CIRA. There is a difference between the police, who are required to serve the public and uphold the law. Private security companies, however, uphold their contracts with their private clients. Now, if you actually look at the private security sector, it's 4 times larger than SAP's. So in terms of resource, quite often in terms of funding, it's far better resourced and funded than anything the SAPS has to offer. Now, because of this, the existing police minister has basically said that he would like to pursue a partnership between the private security sector and SAPS. Now, what exactly that partnership looks like, they don't really say. However, there are certain things that private security companies do currently do, but they're not actually allowed to do, such as stop people and search them. Things like take knives off them or deadly weapons. Yes, of course, they can detain an individual if he's engaged in a crime, effectively conduct a citizen's arrest if it was a crime within a private client's vicinity, in other words, on your property. But what they can't actually do is they can't do anything in an official capacity in the way that a police officer would. And so I'm assuming that what they're wanting to do is actually give greater powers to private security so that they can do these things, such as search individuals, take knives off them and what. The idea also being that potentially they could do it in the streets, driving to a location, going to see a client's premises, and potentially somebody looks dodgy and you stop them and you search them, maybe ask them what they're doing there. These small little things would have a drastic impact on crime in South Africa. It would assist the police greatly. And what it would also do is incur a greater degree of legitimacy to the profession, that is, the private security industry. Now, to say that the two would need to work closer together is kind of misleading, because the two currently work together very closely. If you've ever been on any form of CPF, you'll know that they're always representing private security and the police. The two regularly engage, with the police often acting almost as the eyes overseeing what's happening with many private security companies. If there are issues, they'll frequently engage CIRA on any potential conflicts between the two. So it's not that the two don't currently engage, because they do. So what exactly would this mean going forward? Well, it's actually pretty unclear, because at this point in time, as I said at the start of this, we have a police minister that doesn't want to be seen constantly on the cameras as doing, look at me, I'm on great. We don't actually know what he's got in mind. What we do know is that he's thinking that the private security companies are far bigger than SAPS. SAPS needs help, and they could potentially help. So he's trying to come up with a way in which the two can help each other in order to minimize crime and the impact it has on the citizen. And for that, I'd commend the police minister. He's doing a great service to the benefit of the Republic. However, in a last bit of news, SAPS says that it is also attempting to recruit all of the detectives who have already left its service. They basically say there's a number of people that have left, so there's good skills that the country sorely needs, and they basically want these people to come back to work. Now, the idea is that they'll basically come back on the grade or the rank that they left in. They'll be given the current pay that those individuals earn. And the other thing that they'll do is they'll basically go back to doing the job they were doing before. And therein actually is the problem. Because you see, what it effectively does is it asks people to say, you left the industry because you were frustrated. You're frustrated quite often with your commanders, lack of career progression, and the general difficulties that SAPS experiences as a whole. You're basically just going to take up your job. You're going to go straight back to where you were. Same rank, same station, same everything. This isn't really going to attract people back to the SAPS. You see, many individuals also left SAPS because of BE requirements. Many of them were told that they could get to warrant officer status, but they were never going to be station commander or brigadier or generals. Many of them obviously being former Afrikaners, and you see the problem is that many of them were or have been there sometimes since the apartheid regime, and many of those individuals were told they were never going anywhere. Many of them left the police service to go work elsewhere. It was just the natural thing, otherwise you're never going to progress in your career. That, and given all the other difficulties that they experience. Now the problem is none of those have actually been solved, so I can't actually see this recruitment drive actually being very successful. The only way it would be successful is if individuals had left the police, regressed it, and basically want to go back. That's pretty much it, and I don't know how many individuals of those there's going to be. So I commend the police minister for wanting to get them back, but until the actual issues that drove them out in the first place are fixed, I don't really see this being a successful endeavor. But you can let me know what you think in the comment section below. That's it from me for now. Until tomorrow. Bye.